Hey friends, and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about the 9 most important books that you can read as an entrepreneur or as a new entrepreneur just getting started. Reading is something that I am passionate about, and I do believe that readers are leaders. So it is one of the most incredible ways that you can actually feed your brain with positivity and information. I'm so excited to chat with you about this today. My name is Sarah Mae Ives, and I have a successful advertising business. I also have a tremendous passion for teaching other women how to start their own advertising businesses, and it is not as hard as you might assume. It's certainly not rocket science, and maybe you could do rocket science, but I probably couldn't. And I can very successfully run ads for other businesses. So if you want to learn more about how I did start my own advertising business, I've got a free guide which I will link in the description. If you like what I'm talking about, if you want to see more of my videos as well, I would encourage you to hit subscribe to my channel and turn on the notifications bell. Let's dig right in. One of the most important books that you can read as an entrepreneur, one of my favorite books, is called Winging It by Emma Isaacs. Why do I love Winging It so much? Because it's really a book about action and about taking imperfect action and killing those beliefs, those limiting beliefs that creep up when we're starting our own business. Because what can happen is we can start to think that we have to be perfect, we have to know everything, we have to have X, Y, Z in place before we just start our businesses. And the real truth of the matter is that no matter what stage you're at, you can always know more, and you don't have to know everything to provide a tremendous value to the people that you're trying to help. So overall, this book by Emma Isaacs is something that I recommend to all the women in my mentorship program who work with me, because she really gives you permission to start imperfectly by reminding you that we all are winging it to a certain degree. In fact, she gives some incredible examples of Amazon, for example. One of the reasons why Amazon has become a billion-dollar company is because of the ability of Amazon, and I assume its founder, to make quick action decisions, taking quick, decisive action. And that is going to be a key of your success. And I'm like that too. I did it without knowing, without realizing, but in business, I have taken many quick, decisive decisions, and some worked out and some didn't. But I'm really happy with where I'm at now. So I highly recommend Winging It. Emma is going to talk to you about getting over yourself and just getting started. She's achieved some wonderful things as an entrepreneur as well, so you're going to learn a bit more about her. So Winging It, highly recommend this book. Stop thinking, start doing, why action beats planning every time. My second most important book recommendation is called Stillness is the Key by Ryan Holiday. I worked with an incredible mentor and obviously still have lots of contact with him, Scott Oldford. And one of the things that Scott taught me was that I wasn't stepping into my greatness because I wasn't slowing down. I was always going super fast at a frenetic pace. I always felt behind. And he recommended this book to me, and I've read it at least 3 times. It's an incredible book because what he does is he talks about some exceptional moments in history and some exceptional leaders of our time and how they made some of their best decisions in their lives by the simple ability to slow down and to listen to ourselves and to know ourselves through activities like meditation. Because when we know ourselves, we tap into this deep inner wisdom, and when we slow down, we shy away from making quick emotional responses that may not get us the intended outcome. And I'm guilty of this as anyone else. I've made many times very quick action responses, and I realized, you know what, Sarah, if you just had waited a few hours or a few days before sending that response, you wouldn't be in this position right now. So a lot of times our knee-jerk reaction in life, what we want to do right away, is actually not what is in our best interest or in the best interest of the people that we're communicating with. I'm flipping to one of his first chapters called The Domain of the Mind. And in this chapter, he talks about the Cuban Missile Crisis and how JFK dealt with it. And one of the main reasons why it had such a favorable outcome was for the ability of JFK to sound out all of the things he was hearing from other people. because the people really wanted him to react. They wanted him to show a strong force of power and react, and he didn't. He became quiet and introspective, and he dug within really to find the answer of what he wanted to do. So that's the way the entire book is structured. He goes chapter by chapter, concept by concept, to talk about ways that some incredible leaders throughout history have used this tool of slowing down to improve their lives and the lives of those around them. So I feel like this is required reading as an entrepreneur. Super duper helpful. Now, the next most important book that you want to read as an entrepreneur is called Profit First. Profit First talks about if and how you can have profitability in your business. When I came into the business game, I had no clue how business profits worked. I had no clue how to really manage my finances. In fact, I'd always been in a lot of debt. I bought things I shouldn't have bought. I didn't manage my finances. I didn't even do budgeting. Nothing. I hated all of that. And when I started my business, I didn't even know what a profit margin was. I highly recommend that you get this book called Profit First, Transform Your Business from a Cash-Eating Monster to a Money-Making Machine. This guy, Mike, is going to educate you on the key ways that you can think about your finances and ensure that your business is profitable. I've been through the ringer with businesses that weren't profitable. In fact, they were so unprofitable that I joked that they were really just expensive hobbies. They looked like businesses, they acted like businesses, but really I was going further and further into that every single day. So in order to run a successful business, you have to know how to prioritize profit, because if your business is not profitable, you will not be able to continue to help people. Yes, I recognize that you start a business, if you're like me, because you want to help people. You want to provide a valued service. But the irony is, if we don't make sure we're profitable, we're not going to be able to do it for very long, because then you're going to have to go get another job if you can't pay the bills. So I highly recommend you read Profit First as well. Here's another really cool book that I highly recommend you read, and it's called In the Flow by Alisa Vitti. Now, why is this book important? If you're a female in business, I highly recommend you read this book called In the Flow. And the reason why is because as a female entrepreneur, you can be impacted through the different phases of your cycle. And Alisa Vitti does a really wonderful job of educating you on just how the different seasons of your cycle can impact things like productivity, how you're showing up for your business. And she helps you to not only nurture your health and nurture how you're feeling, but also to talk about the concept of productivity and creativity. And there are certain times in our cycle where we're really rested, we're feeling productive. These are great times for us to do things like content creation, writing, showing up on video, doing all the things that we need to do creatively for our business. That happens for about 2 weeks over our cycle. And then the week before our period, we'll find that we need to be a bit more mindful of taking care of ourselves, getting to bed on time, eating foods that aren't too salty. When it comes to your success, power as an entrepreneur, this is going to relate back to how well you know yourself. I especially remembered when I did sales calls all the time, I would also be mindful of this, because sometimes my sales calls around the time that I was feeling like PMSy, they didn't go that well. So what I started to do was take fewer calls during those times when I knew I was going to be more tired, and you can tell that all in advance. And another very cool thing that Alisa Vitti has is she has an app, and this is called, I think it's called a Flow app, and you can actually track your cycle. So you know in advance when those times are going to happen. It's going to allow you to bring a tremendous amount of control back to your life as an entrepreneur. Something that I highly recommend you read as an entrepreneur is a book by Donald Miller called Building a Story Brand. And he really talks about how you can really build your story as an entrepreneur, because ultimately the reason why people work with you in this day and age isn't because you're the only person doing what you're doing. The market's already saturated. The key way that you can stand out is to tell your story, because people love story. We have been telling story for hundreds of thousands of years, starting back around the fire. As humans, it's how we remember things, retain knowledge, talk about companies and brands. So I highly recommend you read this book. He's going to talk about 7 universal story points that all humans respond to, the real reason customers make purchases, how to simplify your brand message so people understand and act on it, and how to create the most effective message messaging for websites, brochures, social media. So it's a really wonderful book to learn more about story. And this just reminded me of another book that I have to recommend to you guys. Robert McKee is actually the master of story, and he wrote this book way before Donald Miller wrote this book. If you're kind of a nerd like I am, you're gonna love this book's story. And it was featured in a Nicolas Cage Meryl Streep movie called Adaptation. The author Robert McKee doesn't star in it, but someone plays him in the movie, and it's really, really fun. Now, the next book I want to talk about is called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza. So if any of you saw the movie called What the Bleep Do You Know, or even The Secret, you will have seen Joe Dispenza interviewed. And what makes Joe Dispenza so incredible is his work on how we can basically improve our lives by being happier and being more joyful and letting go of those negative habits of our mind, of reactivity, of being miserable. What he really talks about is how we actually can change our minds. We're indoctrinated with this belief that we are born the person we're born and we really can't change, and that if we're depressed or sad or anxious, we can't change our brains. But he shows with lots of research how we really can break the habit of being ourselves. Now, he talks a lot about meditation and the power and transformation that can happen through the experience of meditation, because what meditation does is it allows you to slow your brain down so that you can start to see the kind of monkey brain, as Buddhists call it, that overthinking, worrying, a frenetic part of our brain that is always wondering what next, oh my gosh, I'm so far behind. And meditation allows us to slow down and really tap into our inner seat of wisdom. So this is a really transformational book that I highly recommend you read or listen to on Audible, etc. It's going to be life-changing for you. And the last book that I'll talk about today is called The Happiness Advantage. So The Happiness Advantage is such a fun book because it's based on a ton of science, a ton of psychology, and it's by Shawn Achor. And what this book really teaches us is how a positive brain fuels success in work and life. We often think the thought, I will be happy when I achieve XYZ. How many of you watching this video have had the same thought that I have had, which is, I'm gonna lose 20 pounds and I'll be the happiest person on the planet. And then you lose the 20 pounds and you can actually still be quite miserable. Why? Because happiness isn't dependent on a destination. In fact, what research shows, and this book is so wonderful because he takes you through all the research step by step and really practical exercises that you can do. And what it all shows is that you're not likely to be happy because you achieve XYZ. In fact, you're more likely to achieve wonderful things if you were already happy to begin with. Now, isn't that fun to think about? We often think, I'll wait for happiness, but really, if you just get happy right now, do the exercises in this book to contribute to your happiness. Of course, he talks about meditation, he talks about gratitude, he talks about some really interesting concepts and ideas to change your brain. If you can get happy before you get to the final destination, it's going to increase your chances of getting to that final destination even more. So I highly recommend that you do read this book. He talks about how research shows that happy employees are more productive, more creative, better problem solver. He draws on his original research as well. He talks about things like the Tetris effect, which was a really cool study that they did with students that played a lot of Tetris. And the students, what they found is that after going into like the shopping store, they would start to imagine the cereal boxes as being on like a game of Tetris. We can really train our brain to see our world and to see our reality in a certain way. And that means that by practicing things like gratitude, we can absolutely change our lives and change our outcomes. So I highly recommend that you read that. And okay, let's do one more bonus book, okay? Because I had this sitting here on my desk. One of the most important components of your success as an entrepreneur, for many of us, is effective copywriting. So if you want to become better at copywriting, I highly recommend this book called the Adweek Copywriting Handbook, the ultimate guide to writing powerful advertising and marketing copy as one of America's top copywriters. So if you want to improve your copywriting, and copywriting is obviously a huge part of advertising and writing effectively and writing emails that get people to open them. one. If you haven't yet read this book, I highly recommend it as a copywriting tutorial book. Here is the big stack of books that we chatted about today. Sorry, you basically just saw my big hand there. But anyway, these are the books that I highly recommend you read. Let me know what you think. If you have questions, comments, please leave them, and I would look forward to communicating with you. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you guys next week on next week's video.